Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to Radio Apni Awaz. This is your Sunday live with your brother Abu Musa. And before the short ad break, I was talking about some of the incidents that took place here in the UK recently. We had a couple of famous, not so famous, but we had a couple of incidents here in the UK where a brother Majid and a sister called Maria had been put on trial, or one has been arrested and been sentenced for 22 weeks in prison. I just want to touch on those cases again before I go on to my next news story. So, I just want to touch on brother Majid Nawaz. I mean, again, I mentioned prior to the advert breaks that he's quite a very influential social media person. You can find him on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. He puts a lot of content out there that is very politically related to Islamic current affairs. So whatever's going on in the Muslim world, he will address them on his social media pages. He's a political activist also, and community kind of activist as well, based in Leicester. And obviously this whole incident back in 2022, around September time, you had this whole Hindufta gang style kind of marches going on in the communities of Leicester. And those of you that know there's a big population of Muslims there, and also Hindus as well. And I think there's a very good community cohesion going on there within the Hindu and Muslim communities. So these gangs coming in there trying to stir up hatred didn't really help the situation, especially those that were, targeting vulnerable Muslims and attacking them. There were scenes and incidents of that. Now, a couple of things here. First of all, the militant nature of these Hindutva kind of cowards that came into Leicester, they're walking through in gangs. I mean, there were like hundreds of them. And they're picking on individuals that were weak and vulnerable. This caused a big stir actually within the Muslim communities. You had Muslims in the surrounding areas that were getting ready to head towards Leicester and really clamp down on these Hindus that were far-right Hindus that were trying to create this anarchy in Leicester. And Brother Majid apparently was quite instrumental in de-escalating this whole situation, where he was echoing a message to Muslims around the UK, may I add, because brothers were coming from all over, London, Birmingham, surrounding areas. And he said to them, don't come here and don't make matters worse, because Muslims were ready to go and protect the Muslim communities there. So his message was very clear that don't come here, don't make the situation worse than it needs to be. So he was trying to de-escalate the whole situation. But he obviously had a very strong and harsh word to the police for their lack of policing, for their lack of control of the situation, for them allowing these mobs to carry out the violent behavior and instigating this whole hatred within those communities, given the history of those Hindu and Muslim communities that have lived side by side for many years and have kind of lived very well. And this nicely links back to my whole conversation about society and the importance of how society's responsibility, the government, the policing system, all of the instruments that create that state apparatus, how they should protect and preserve the integrity of communities. But when they're negligible of their responsibilities, like these examples here and many other examples that I can also provide, you have anarchy and chaos, you have disruption. You create this disruption, you create this unrest within those communities. Excuse me. So the police were accountable because they allowed such a march to go on when they shouldn't have. Why allow such behavior to go on? Why allow the aggravation of communities? Why bring forth such a group that have this very racist, thuggish kind of militant style approach to their politics, when you should know what their agenda is and what their mission is by being there? You should have straight away stopped them, arrested them. We look at the Islamic history. We look at how the Prophet ﷺ, he protected and preserved the rights of the dhimmis, the non-Muslim within those communities. That he said, Rasulullah ﷺ said that those that harm and attack the dhimmi, the non-Muslim, is like he attacks me. Now this statement itself makes it very clear how the non-Muslims were viewed within that society. that who in the right mind as a Muslim would attack the Prophet ﷺ? Nobody. Those of you that love the Prophet ﷺ would not lay a hand on the Prophet ﷺ. So he's saying to you that if you touch and harm a non-Muslim, it's like you harm me. Where do you hear that in this society? Who protects the non-Muslims in this? Sorry, who protects the minorities in this society? Here in this society, you have the far-right politicians coming out vocally on TV. There's so many state media outlets on our mainstream channels that are, advocating, open hatred towards migrant communities, open Islamophobia going on. You see it all over plastered the media. And interestingly enough, whilst I'm talking about this, it reminds me of whilst I was at work, I received this email. One of the Muslim employees within the council, I think she's in the legal team. She put a big massive statement on there about the recent riots that took place and how her as a Muslim woman wearing a hijab in the UK, in that local authority that I work in, how she was feeling, kind of restless and kind of helpless and feeling threatened in her position. And she spoke more on an individual kind of like level, how she felt and how this affected her, affected the communities around her. And it prompted me to put a response out there, and I did. I just felt prompted to ask if you need to say something here. This is a really key note and key point. So within those internal communications that we have, you can have a reply and put your post up there. So I put another post up there, putting my thoughts, my 2 pence worth in that statement, and I highlighted that, look, these riots should have never took place. They shouldn't have been allowed to take place. We have to account the government, we have to account the media, we have to account all these individuals that have flamed the fire of hatred towards immigrant, and be specifically more Islamophobia that was created through false reporting of news, which sparked this whole controversial behavior in Southport, where the mosque was being attacked. Why? Because the non-Muslims there thought that a Muslim was behind the stabbing of these young innocent girls that were killed. So there has to be ownership, there has to be accountability, there has to be some kind of penalty for some of these organizations that are allowed and given free rein to say and spew such hatred. Whereas throughout Islamic history, communities thrive together. Those non-Muslim communities, they thrived living under the Islamic ruling and governorship. They got positions within those structures. The non-Muslims, they like I say, economically they thrived within those communities. They were protected, so they've gained so much. But we are under the hammer all the time, living as a Muslim in the West. We have our benefits, of course, but we can see an air of change. We can see a narrative that is, creating a very negative, stereotypical narrative of anti-hate towards Islam Muslims. And we need to account those people in position, inshallah. So yeah, that were my thoughts on that. So I just wanted to touch on that. So we need to remember Brother Majid in our du'as here, that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him sabr and help him in his situation. And may he continue the good work that he does, and it doesn't deter him in any way, because we brothers and sisters, I've shared so much news content that he shared, and alhamdulillah, he does so much for this community in sharing good content and good information. I think on that note, I'm going to take a short little break. Brother AJ, how are we doing for time? Yeah, great. Okay, so brothers and sisters, please stay tuned. I will be back after these short little breaks, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.